I don't know. Do we want to watch this? Not really, right?
Do you be yourself, and that's the best. That's the best thing you can do for anything that surrounds you. Anytime you try to copy something or maybe you're not being genuine to yourself. So when he said "do you," as simple as it is.
Last month, one of my friends quoted an MF Doom bar at me, and it got me thinking about what really makes some music or art actually stick.
Well, I say if you want to do music, I would say just stay original and come from your heart, and hopefully you like doing it because it's gonna be a lot of ups and downs. I wouldn't change it for the world. So.
These days, it's very easy to get stuck in the idea that we need to jump on content trends or find some kind of niche that's gonna work within popular culture if we wanna make something that becomes quote unquote successful. But if that's the energy by which we actually approach making our art, what's the chance that we're going to make anything that's meaningful or is actually going to break through? And also, even if we do find some kind of success with it, honestly, what is the meaning of that success going to be if we're simply performing an iteration of something that somebody else could have done anyway?
That's true, and that's something that I definitely struggled with over the years. Is like, trying to sell type beats. I actually deleted my BeatStars the other day, dude. Simply because it was like, I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, and the results aren't really there. I'm getting results from other things like fairly easily compared to this. So I just kind of decided to double down on what's working, number one. And number two, like, a lot of this stuff that, I guess a lot of the things that kind of got in my head about going on BeatStars had to do with, I mean, like the guy said, following trends and shit like that. You see a certain type beat selling, and you're like, oh, I got to learn how to make that shit. Certain artist comes out, oh, I got to learn how to make that kind of shit. Meanwhile, had I just stuck to like what I like to make, I'd have been better off. You know what I mean? Because what you like to make is gonna come out better. You know what I mean? Than shit you're kind of like forcing yourself to make. And especially if you're forcing yourself and still learning, that shit's not gonna sound as good as shit that you actually like to make. And yeah, I think a lot of people would be better off just making what they like as opposed to following trends and trying to keep up with certain type beat niches and stuff like that.
He rhymes as weird as I feel. I don't know if that makes any sense, you know what I'm saying? Like, dude, I swear to God, when I saw that Mad Villain record, I bought it on vinyl. I didn't even have a record player. I bought it on vinyl just to stare at the album. And I stared at it and I just kept going, I understand.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
But it's like, I understand.
Perhaps it is due to this seminal connection that audiences can relate their experience in life with the villains and their dastardly doings.
Like when your fans listen to your stuff, they hear something different, definitely, what kind of experiences have you had that kind of like led you to kind of follow that route?
Like when Biggie first came out, it was straight underground party and bullshit. I remember hearing that shit on nothing but underground stations, you know what I'm saying? I would never hear that shit on radio. But then he kept his style really rugged, same way he had it. But then somewhere along the line, he passed into the mainstream. But if it's raw, it's raw.
This video quite simply is going to try and focus us on thinking about what actually makes our creative energy, our creative approach truly individual.
If you don't live it and it's not a part of you, it's not going to come out of the instrument. What we play is life. What we create is life. The quality of the human being, the quality of the vessel, even a broken vessel, which is oftentimes the most effective, the most relatable, the most universal. But there has to be that space in you that you've saved that is the sacred space. It doesn't have to be, of course, there are great ways to cultivate.
What matters is to know what you want and pursue it and understand that it's going to be hard.
What inspires me, man, to my style and why, I would say if it had to be an individual, if we was looking at people as individuals, I would say me.
But before we jump in here, I want to give a quick note to this week's sponsor, and that's ClickUp, the free all-in-one productivity and simple things up, but to get some year up for supporting and checks.
So every time I set my mind to do something, I would say, anytime I set my mind on a goal, I stay at it and go at it. So it's like straight shot. The straight line being, it's a path. It's a Siratul Mustaqim, the path of the righteous. It's not easy to balance on that string though. It's a lot of discipline involved and, you know, morals, ethics. But if you keep within that path, you'll hit your goal. That's the most direct path to any goal or so-called dream that you could ever have.
I talk quite a lot about how the culture of the creative industries can end up leading us into certain ways that we might feel that we need to express ourselves, especially if we're looking to find that quote-unquote success or mass distribution with our work. But finding what makes us truly unique is often going to be a process of trying to unplug from those mass cultural products.
People say they make beat tapes, they be on CD. That's cool, but went back to the basics for Brazil. Had to. Might move out here and end up doing all Brazilian cats, you know what I'm saying? You never know. I'll be out here just producing Brazilian cats, singers and rappers. I do my shit for me anyway first, for my health, and then people like it. Man, thank you.
What topics do you have the best conversations and connections around? Are there certain creative principles or ideas that you'd be willing to really work for, or even if there was no money put on the table at the end of the day? And going back to think about yourself as a younger person or child even, what were those things that got you engaged before the idea of that career actually came in and started to maybe reform certain ways that you reflect on your practice?
So each one I come up.
Certain ways that you reflect on your practice.
So each one I come up with, I'll write down, but they tend to come faster. It's just like conversation.
So it's like having a conversation with yourself, but different characters.
Yeah, like that old homeless guy who's laughing to himself. He's probably doing the same thing without a notebook. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I liken it to? I liken it to just joking around the schoolyard.
Finally, and this one wasn't on the script, it's something that just came to me. Look, maybe your art isn't about working through certain types of negative experience or pain, but a lot of art is. So maybe to reflect on what are those experiences or what are those deeper emotional tones that your work deals in, and how can you create forms or follow certain directions in order to actually express those most powerful of emotions that you may feel?
I have no stability. Zero stability in my life as a child, so you know, when you move around a lot, you see a lot of different things and you have a different perspective than most normal people. You know, a lot of things that people do normally, I had to figure it out. If I didn't grow up in that environment, I definitely wouldn't be here. So ultimately, I'm glad that I grew up the way I did, I guess, even if it was shitty. I'd say I overwork to, you know, fill in a void or something like that where I don't know, a family should be or something like that, you know. But I think that's common for people in this industry or in the entertainment. You know, they throw themselves into their work because there's nothing else really.
Yeah, it's therapeutic, you know.
I've been talking kind of exhaustively on this channel recently about how important it might be to integrate the self that we are day to day and how we move through the world in all different ways with the way that we might express ourselves when we present our art or stand next to our work in a gallery, for example.
If you don't live it and it's not a part of you, it's not going to come out of the instrument. What we play is life.
What I find is...
That's kind of what I tell artists too, bro, is like the easiest way to get people to listen to you, like actually, and like continue to listen to you is like just to show them that like you actually live your music, you know what I mean? No matter what that is, you know what I mean?
The more spontaneous the writing process, like the more it's freestyle, like basically, and then written down, and the quicker I say it, the more the brain naturally remembers the pattern.
This element of doing you, as in figuring out who you are, what really makes your work and how you want to live unique, then leaning into that fully is a part of this integration. There's a famous story about the beat poet Diane de Prima, which I think kind of demonstrates a little bit about what I'm talking about. One night in the 1950s, Diane was at a party at Allen Ginsberg's place in New York City. They were talking, reading, smoking, drinking until 11:30 p.m. came around, and Diane said that she was going home to relieve her babysitter. Jack Kerouac shouted at Diane, "De Prima, unless you forget about your babysitter, you're never going to be a writer." And Diane didn't listen and walked away and went home anyway. Just like Diane, if we can figure out the way we want to live and the principles that underlie that, whether that's abstaining from certain things around us that society might see.
Yeah, dude, don't let it use you type of thing, right? Don't ever do what you don't want to fucking do with your art. You know what I mean? There's nothing wrong with this, but I wasted a lot of time making fucking like Future type beats and Young Thug type beats. They don't sound bad, but they're not good, and they didn't do anything for me or for anyone else really, dude. Nobody gave a fuck. I was trying to sell beats, you know what I mean, on the internet. And it doesn't work like that. You know what I mean? Because the beats that people actually want to make songs to, like, are the beats that like I like making, you know what I mean? And again, there's nothing wrong with making like trap shit or whatever, but some people are better at it.
As normal, but we decide we don't agree with, or transgressing certain limits in the localized culture around us because we can see that they're not necessary or don't suit our own principles. All these things about how we live can become the base layer that will then inspire actual individual power in our creative work.
I'm getting to a point, which is a part of the realization, where perhaps there's not a context within the industry and the mechanics therein that, as they exist today, that I can find true inspiration from. There's a constellation of inspiration that crosses so many spectrums of society, and I can't access it if I play by these rules.
If we're a DJ, then we're gonna know if every day we've woken up and spent 2 hours flicking through Instagram or doing something else that's not necessarily music related, or if we've woken up and listened through the most recent recommendations that a fellow music lover has sent us and taken the time to categorize a few of these into one of our weekend sets.
I'm constantly striving for perfection. So what I'm doing is constantly elevating and educating myself in a way that, all right, I'm better than I was the previous day. So that could go on forever. There's really gonna not ever be a top. I don't think I'll do it in this lifetime. So
yeah, it's you versus you. You know what I mean?
To get into the top, staying on top, I don't really have an direct answer for that. Besides, my experience.
What I'm getting at here, and reminding myself as well is that when we stand next to our work and present it in any way, the reality of actually how we live that sits below that is going to be recognizable to the audience, and they are going to be able to see if you're being real or not.
Musicality helps, man. Some people chop and don't chop. The chord progression ain't right. You have to be able to chop so a live band can replay it over. If you don't, like sometimes people chop and don't chop, the bass line doesn't make any sense. That means a live musician can't play it over because the chord progression is not right.
If we do act one way when we're on show and
that's a
another
good
way
point.
when we're in private, then this idea...
Damn, dude, that's how that's how impactful that one episode of Rhythm Roulette was. This is like I've already seen clips of it in like multiple videos.
Of finding our individualness and finding some power in that is not going to be able to be accessed, and that you that you're trying to find at the heart of it is going to end up being more of a mirage or a created image, a facsimile of something truly individual, unique, as opposed to that real thing. Image is going to, and that you that you're trying to find at the heart of it is going to end up being more of a mirage or a created image, a facsimile of something truly individual, unique, as opposed to that real thing. Okay, I'm going to wrap this one up now, but again, I've put some more notes.
Yeah. I can relate to that almost entirely when it, or not relate. I agree to it almost entirely in relation to selling type beats and shit like that. Because, you know, the thing is, you know, you start going on these sites and you start watching these tutorials, start following all these other producers, and you get inspired, which is fine. You might get influenced a little, which is also fine. But then you might get paranoid and stop making the kind of beats that, you know, maybe you were pursuing to make when you got started. And it might have been better to just kind of stay on track as opposed to like, because essentially you're starting over in a skill set if you're trying to follow this trend or whatever. And I don't know, it's kind of hard for me to explain. But ultimately, if you make like, I don't know, man. If you make like trap beats, you know what I mean? And you know you can't make soul beats or any other type beat, you know what I mean? That starts getting, like, seems to get a lot of traction, and you want to completely switch your lane into this one whatever, you know? And it's not something that you know as well as the stuff you've been making, so you kind of take a detour and you really get off track with your main mission. But this channel is dope, man. Creative Minds. It's already pretty big. 163K. Shout out to him. He's got a lot of Patreon people.